Hello and welcome to the Thought Leader Recruiter podcast, where we explore the latest trends shaping the world of recruitment. Today, I'm joined by Mike English, Vice President of Search Strategies and Search Consultants at Moran Company. Welcome, Mike, to the show. It's
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
great to have you here, Mike. And let's start with your journey into recruitment. What led you into the industry and what's kept you in it?
Yeah, my background is in nonprofit management, so NGOs, nonprofits. So I had about a 20-year career in that sector as a CEO, executive director of nonprofit organizations. Did that for about 20 years and then started recruiting for a company called the Moran Company. And this is a company that does executive search recruiting. So the positions that we recruit for are primarily CEO level positions or other leadership positions. So that can include COO, CFO, development, so fundraising professionals. And so I've been doing this about 6 years. It's the company I work for, started by a guy named Bill Moran, and his kind of philosophy of recruiting is to staff the company with people who have a background in the positions that we're recruiting for. And so most of us did not start as professional recruiters, but get trained up on how to recruit and then use that kind of professional background expertise in order to better find the right fit for each client. So what keeps me in this industry is that I really enjoy the clients. So each of our clients is a different nonprofit organization with a mission. And so these missions there's a big range of different missions, but all of them are intended to essentially improve life, improve the environment, improve the world we live in. So the people that we work with are all very passionate about the cause. And so it's really enjoyable to get to know a new client, find the right fit to lead the organization and ideally make kind of a lasting impact on each of the clients we work with.
And over the years, what's been the most surprising thing you've learned about the hiring process?
That the landscape really changes quite a bit from year to year. And during the time that I've been doing this, I started doing this type of work before the pandemic and continue to do it now. So one thing that has surprised me, I would say, is the plethora of high quality individuals that apply for jobs that we recruit for. And so each client, as we start, thinks that it's going to be impossible to find the right leader. But what's surprising, I think, to them and to me is just how many really strong, high quality candidates we get for each of these jobs. I would say the biggest misconception is that we are headhunters and somewhat cutthroat. We are not, and it one misconception is that we're sort of hired guns, but really we're partners in this process. And so very collaborative, making sure that we become experts on what they do. And so then you're really an arm of the organization as we start the recruiting process and a real ally to the organization. So
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, how competitive is the hiring market in the non-profit space?
it is pretty competitive. So there's a lot of turmoil in the United States for political reasons and other just changes after the pandemic, a lot of changes in the nonprofit sector. So there's a lot of mobility, I would say. So because there's a lot of mobility in the workforce, that means that it's competitive on the candidate side. And so for our searches, we're getting a lot more interest, I would say, in executive level positions because there are a lot of people that are looking for something new right now and a lot of really high quality people that, see what's going on with the federal government and maybe are worried they'll lose their job or don't want to continue doing it. And so we are trying to, get an influx of candidates this way. And so I would say it's remained pretty competitive in terms on the candidate side over the past few years.
Yeah. And what are some of the biggest hiring mistakes you see organizations make, and how can they fix them?
I would say the biggest mistake is to not be clear about exactly what you're looking for. So there can be a tendency to try to cast a very wide net and look for the shiniest object or the most exciting or dynamic person rather than being focused on what are the exact skills that we need and what is the type of leader we need at at this point in time. And so we spend a lot of time on the front end trying to make sure that we're really aligned on what we're looking for. Sometimes, and so our clients are typically the boards of directors for these organizations. And so we try to spend a lot of time making sure that they themselves are in alignment, because one of the biggest challenges can be you recruit, you spend a lot of time recruiting, getting really quality candidates, and then you discover towards the end that there are really strong differing opinions amongst the hiring team about the type of individual or the type of skills that they should be looking for. And so really the remedy to that is to spend the extra time on the front end before you start recruiting, making sure everybody is in agreement about what they're looking for and that there's clarity and some focus about the types of skills and qualifications you're looking for.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, there's a big debate at the moment with the work from home versus in office. I don't know what it's like in the States, but what's your view in it? Is it kind of the same over there?
It's the same. It really is. And so working from home is great and everybody wants to do that. And so there was I think I would say a real swing towards allowing remote work, and people have gotten used to this. And now it's sort of swinging, I would say, the other way, where more and more employers are looking for people who are, going to come into an office. And so the challenge that creates is you have candidates who look great, you're very qualified, but you quickly learn that they're not interested in coming into an office 5 days a week. And so having that conversation with each of our candidates up front about the actual policy of the organization is really important. There was a time, and I think this is in a way changing, but there was a time where there was a lack of, not a real policy at the companies or organizations about whether they were going to allow remote work. It was sort of, they're sort of hybrid or still undecided about that. And that can be a problem because, you'll get a lot of candidates for a remote position, 3 or 4 times as many. And so that's great. But if your organization is moving towards more in-person work, you need to be upfront about that. It's going to reduce your candidate pool for sure, but if that's the direction you're going, those are the people that you really need to be focusing on, are the people who are willing to work in person.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it all stems from COVID, really, doesn't it? Before COVID, it wasn't really an issue at all, but after COVID, it's really caused a bit of a stir.
It has, and I think that the remote work it became clear that it's possible to do a lot of jobs remotely. So for these leadership positions, however, in many cases, if you're recruiting the CEO of an organization, that board of directors, they really want that person in the office. It's somewhat challenging to create a strong organizational culture through meetings like this.
How do you personally approach client relationships? What does an ideal partnership look like for you?
I would say that the ideal is relationship with the client is very collaborative and trusting. And so they're hiring us to do the work. So we don't want them to feel like they need to be extremely involved in the day-to-day work of the recruiting. But on the front end, we do like to spend a lot of time with the client before we start recruiting. So spending in time meeting with the staff, meeting with kind of key stakeholders that work with the organization. And so that once we start recruiting, we all kind of agree what we're looking for, but also that they trust us. So then once this recruiting process starts, they can be more hands off and trust that we're going to bring in the right people for their organization.
Makes sense. And are there any hiring trends you're seeing right now that candidates or employers should be paying attention to?
Yes, I would say artificial intelligence on both sides. So for the hiring side, you know, we're getting more and more familiar with the types of AI that our candidates are going to be using as they're applying for jobs. So it used to be that you would see a job posted, submit your resume, write a cover letter, and it was very easy to tell who has spent the time really getting to know the organization and understanding the role by their resume and by their cover letter. But AI makes that a lot easier to do, right? So if you're a candidate and you're applying for 30, 40 jobs, you can use AI tools to really take that job description, take your resume and adapt it, create an AI written cover letter that's really pretty good. And so that's one part. So you that makes it harder, I think, for the hiring manager to differentiate candidates who really are interested and maybe this is their sole focus versus others that are applying for lots and lots of jobs. Even during interviews, I haven't seen this too much, but we do conduct a lot of interviews, sort of first round interviews, when we're interviewing lots and lots of people over Zoom. And so Zoom interviews, candidates now are, if they have a couple of screens open on their computer or a different display, they can actually really use some AI tools to even help them respond to questions on the fly, which is kind of amazing. But at the same time, it makes it a little more challenging for the hiring interviewer to make sure that the answers they're giving are coming from their own brain and their own experience versus something they've quickly sort of generated from AI. So I would say that's AI is helpful in making our work more efficient, I would say, as recruiters, but at the same time, it's creating challenges on sort of candidate differentiation. There's one more aspect of that too is when we put out a position posting and someone goes to apply, in addition to providing a cover letter and a CV, we typically ask some questions that we ask them to respond to in order to kind of gauge their interest in the position, and maybe ask some more specific questions that we kind of as a screening tool. That's a very easy hurdle to jump over if you're using AI because you can take that question and find a chat GPT response that's really pretty good. And so part of our work too is in trying to assess answers to these questions that are kind of a screening tool, whether they've been written by chat GPT or if the person has written them themselves. And it's just changed maybe the types of questions we'll ask to try to get a more, I guess, credible or authentic response. I would say one piece of advice is to be aware of trends in the marketplace that may soon create opportunities in terms of really strong candidates for a position. So, for example, if you're a nonprofit organization and your focus is on serving individuals with some sort of intellectual or developmental disabilities, we call them in the US, then the candidate pool, you can get pretty savvy about approaching and recruiting individuals if you're aware of sort of changes in that sector that are happening. So, for example, if you're aware of that a large provider of similar services in your state is scaling back or is going to be laying people off, and you see that coming, those are people you can reach out to because they could be, really the ideal candidates, and they know that there's some instability in their own company, and so being aware of those trends is helpful. Similar to what I mentioned about the federal workforce here in the United States, with so much uncertainty and so many people losing their jobs, if you're an organization with the mission, you can and a federal agency or a state agency is reducing their workforce, or those people are probably worried. Those are the types of individuals that could be really great candidates. And so, kind of getting out in front of those trends is a good way to really maybe be proactive about finding the ideal person for your organization.
And for job seekers, what's one small change they could make today that would significantly improve their chances of landing a great role?
I would say it's a simple thing, and it's always been true, but really do your research and really, if it's a job you really want, make sure that as you apply, you do customize your resume, you do customize your cover letter so that it's clear that this is your top priority and that you understand the position and that you effectively communicate how your specific skills and qualifications would make you a really strong candidate. It's become so easy to apply for many, many, many jobs, particularly through LinkedIn. And so we see so many candidates who are clearly applying for dozens of jobs. And so they don't put the time into doing that. And so my advice of it, and that's fine, but if it's a job you really want, I would really spend the extra time making sure that it's clear how you're a good fit for that job.
Where can people connect with you and learn more about Moran Company?
Our website is morancompany.com, Moran company.com. And again, we're an executive search firm that works exclusively with nonprofit organizations. And so if you go to our website, there is a place you can sign up for a free introductory call. If you're maybe you're a board member of an organization and you have a transition coming up, feel free to set up a time, and we're happy to chat with you about, not even, we don't even have to take the search or contract with you, but we'd be happy to, spend 30 minutes just kind of understanding what your situation is, and provide advice.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Sam.